Hi there again. I'm Caroline with Expat Interviews Thriving Abroad, where I get a chance to share amazing stories with you of people all over the globe who are doing amazing things, living their best life. And I am really excited to talk with one half of this great duo today. And if you don't believe in fate, after you hear his story, you will. Welcome, Anthony, Noah Tucker, the other half of Anthony Joseph, the duo.
It's not here.
Noah,
Absolutely. Hello. Thank you.
I'm thinking of Anthony, but it's Noah. Thank you, Noah. So let's begin with your journey. You're from the US of A, and I'm really excited for people to hear how fate brought you, into the life that you have now. Here you
Sure.
are from the US. What part are you from?
New York.
New
New York all
York.
day. Yep. Born and raised. Uh, absolutely. I still hold it dear to my heart. At least the memories of it.
I like how you said New York all day, 100%. What part?
Yeah. So I'm from a place called New Rochelle,
Okay, a
which
little
is
bit.
kind of just above the Bronx.
Yeah, yeah. So you get to cheat a little bit. You're not really in the city. So,
No.
so how did your journey begin? And now you actually live in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam.
So now I live in the Netherlands. We have resided here for 13, almost 14 years. I'm almost 44. Came out here when I was 30. Myself and my partner, Nadej, who is also Dominican and Haitian woman from Brooklyn. Um, and we both moved out here, two of us, just wanting to get away from America. I had had enough. I'm from a multicultural family. I was raised by a Jewish mother and a black father, both New Yorkers as well, and obviously very free and open-minded and very critical thinkers. And I think that became uh, kind of dominant in my train of thought as I slowly became an adult, right? Like in that late 20s, early 30s, where it really clears up of what type of adult you want to be or who you are. And I didn't want to do it in America, and I didn't want to raise my kids in America. Um, and 13, 14 years ago, well, it was even longer than that because we did 2 years in San Francisco, which we'll get to, but so it was about 15, 16 years ago I left New York. It's crazy that I'm saying that. But we were just done. I was cooked, and I'd had enough, and I was working in really tough kitchens. I come from a kind of a Michelin background in New York, of working in Danielle's and Jean Georges and Oceana, just good, solid restaurants. I'm a chef by trade. And I felt like I had a good enough skill set. My partner, my wife, she was as well. She's in the digital advertising on a corporate level, and she is as sharp as they come. So we was ready to kind of take it on our back and just keep it moving and explore and live. And she was game to travel, and we kind of went to San Francisco for a couple years. Didn't really cut it for us. I think we were looking for either Europe or New York. We realized, so we cut that very quick, and then we moved to Amsterdam. On actually, the catalyst was Nadej. She ended up getting a corporate job that got us out here. And go ahead.
Okay, so that was what put Amsterdam on your map. Your
On my map, that's what made us
Okay,
get here. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
And I think that's what we looked around. We went around. It wasn't just Amsterdam. Actually, neither one of us had ever lived here before. I think Nadej visited in college on her like European backpack kind of thing, and I had been through a layover here once. So totally new. We looked at London, we looked at Paris, we looked at Rome. We just went through kind of Europe in general, and uh, Amsterdam was open, and Nadej came a couple months before me, and she was like, "It's gorgeous, it's amazing, la la la," the whole story. I came, it felt like a fairy tale, um, and it blew me away. I think it was just so damn pretty, and I was used to being in cities that were packed and agitated, and you could cut the air. When I came there, I was like, this is nuts. And I was sold. We were sold. I think within 8 months we bought a house, and maybe a year or something we bought a house. Yeah.
So you were literally in Hell's Kitchen back in New York, like just that's what it felt like.
Grinding. We were grinding, like what you do when you're in New York, as a New Yorker should, right? Like you want that tag, you wear it. And I think that's, New York requires that. If you want to be successful or learn or whatever the curve is you taking, you have to go full on, or New York you're not going to benefit, as most things in life, but New York particularly.
Right.
I find it to be. And I also wanted to kind of reevaluate my work-life balance, right? I was like 30. I was right at the edge of about to get a restaurant that was going to be on mine. And I wanted to make sure I didn't swallow myself like I've watched my predecessors do. And I knew babies was coming later, maybe not then, but it was in the, and I wanted to make sure we were balanced enough to deal with it. And I think that was part of it. I think I was ready to do the 100-hour week, but I could not deal with the surroundings of New York. It wasn't going to work while raising a child.
I really appreciate the fact that you mentioned that, your expat, how your journey came about, because you and I left around the same time. I'm 13 years out. And, back then it wasn't a political or social discomfort that prompted us to want to look somewhere else. It was just life, just just this lifestyle. I mean, I was working 2 jobs, I think, or 3, and 7 days a week, 60, 70 hours. And that was like the norm, you're in it, you're grinding, and there's just you just don't, it's like a wheel, you just don't stop. So it's important for people to understand that we didn't all, expat out because of social issues or,
but not only. I think it's probably fair to say we didn't leave only because of social issues. I did leave because of social issues. Just because of Black Lives Matter is happening now. I thought that way when I was 20, right? Like, so I think it probably, that train of thought has caught up with mainstream America. There's a nice label to it, but in reality, when did we grow up feeling safe being Black in America? At what age? Because I don't got an age. Maybe before I knew it was around, and I was with my parents at 5, 6 or something. But I got stopped by the police for my first time in my life when I was 8, because I was running down the block and he stopped me, asking me where I was going. To school. This is in the morning to school, right? Like, so exactly. So I think there's something to be said for just that conditioning. And I'm not with that conditioning. I'm not with that type of conditioning. And I'm not going to put, if I can help it, my children through that conditioning. That's how we pass on that trauma. I'm not into passing trauma on. I'm not into trauma any longer in my life, to be quite honest.
Yep.
And I think that's really important to recognize. It's hard to recognize that there's trauma when you're in the middle of it and it's being promoted to you, and it's very hard to rationalize it and to make it become self-evident that it's something that it's okay to admit that it's a part of your existence. And I think it only happened. I've been fortunate enough to travel a fair amount in my life. Aside from with the military, I was in the military for 5 years as well. And I was very fortunate to live in Japan and on the West Coast, and all through Southeast Asia. But I think what always happened was it makes you humble. Long story long is that traveling would make me humble. So I realized, this needs to be a part of my life, and I need to not be in my comfort zone because I listen better and I absorb better. And I don't carry, I also don't carry the stereotypes along with me, right? That toxic masculinity that we have, and the list that goes on with that. So it all went away. Now, I don't want to say it went away, but it became less valuable.
Right. It's not front and center anymore. Right.
No, right. No, not at all. And don't get me wrong. I didn't come from a toxic, male environment. I had very healthy examples of Black men who were very focused and very respectful and very old school in that manner, if you understand me. So I didn't have that kind of talk around me growing up. It was all about respect and love. But I think as an adult, I was maybe a little confused on how I was going to carry that out or pass that on.
Right. That's really important also. A good point. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, as fate would have it, here you are in Amsterdam enjoying this beautiful country, which, by the way, is very expat friendly for the most
Extremely.
part.
It's like 85% of the country speaks English.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good country, I guess, to add to your list if you're looking for, ease
Sure.
of communication. So, as fate would have it, you're working in restaurant. You're working in the industry here in there in Amsterdam, and
Yep.
you meet up with someone with a similar
Oh,
situation.
yeah. So with Tony, right? So basically, first job in Amsterdam. Um, I have a, a really good resume, right? I worked really hard at it coming into another country. I made sure it was top. And I walked into this country and I got denied a lot of jobs. First time in my life I got denied jobs, actually. I wasn't used to that shit. Because New York, your pedigree and your work ethic, at least in my field, although it is still obviously racist, the culinary world, the hospitality world has a lot of trauma in it, right? Wrapped around with Black folk. But the doors open. But when I came out here, nobody knew any of the Michelin spots I had worked at. Nobody knew any of the chefs really that I had worked for. But the resume read well to where they would literally tell me like, yeah, I'm sorry, you're just going to intimidate the kitchen. So I was an answer multiple times. So I was
Wow, that's really interesting. So they felt like you were just too far advanced. You were just too good to work.
yeah, and it was really like, no, I'm sorry, we can't give you the job. Because I was really going after a very simple cook job. I wasn't going for chef jobs when I came out. I wanted to get acclimated. I wanted to learn the language and, their restaurant procedure. Plus, remember, I was trained in the States for under European cuisine. So I had this whole, perception of what restaurants were. Now, mind you, I came from dope restaurants in New York that were doing amazing food,
They have some of the best.
Yeah. And I come out to Europe and it's horrible. Like, the food game was horrible 13 years ago here. I mean, almost non-existent. Have you ever been to a Dutch restaurant? No, I'll tell that for you because there is no Dutch restaurants.
No.
That's not a thing. It's not like French or Italian or Portuguese or anything. So there wasn't a food culture out here, which I didn't know. And for me, I was living and breathing food culture. It's my life.
There's like a big hole in the bed.
Okay, I'll come deal with it. And hold on one second. Can you go knock on? So, and a sleepover.
Oh.
Yeah. So, so long story short, first job that I get is with Anthony. Anthony's the chef. I'm dealing with a recruiter. I'm making sure now that he's showing me the resume of the chef. So now I'm like checking my boss's resume where I'm like, okay, let's see so I look at his pedigree is awesome. It's just as good as mine, if not better. He's 6 years older, a little more experience, but solid, working for Marco Pierre White, working for the Roux brothers, big boys in the French game that I know about and that I respected. So I'm like, brilliant, go in. Now, my full name is Noah Gitlitz Tucker, right? Remember, my mom's Jewish. The maiden name is Gitlitz. So when you look at me on paper, Noah Gitlitz Tucker doesn't sound like a black guy from New York. His name was Anthony Joseph. He's a black dude from East London. Also doesn't sound, he sounds like Italian for me, Anthony Joseph. So I go in expecting to think this British dude, he's also British. So I go in expecting thinking it's this big white Italian kind of British guy. He thinks it's going to be, this white kid from New York. We both look at each other. Amazing to meet you. His resume matched his pedigree. He ended up being a very, very solid human being in general. We really, really clicked. And literally from my first job until this moment, we've worked together. Couldn't have called it if you asked me that before I got here.
See, that's where the fate part comes in. It was
100%. I mean, if you want to talk about finding a job and then being able to find a business partner within that job who is another Black male who has an equally impressive pedigree when it comes to knowing what you're supposed to be doing in the kitchen, particularly, right? And serious about business. I mean, we see on so many different levels of eye to eye. It's really an amazing relationship to have a partner. I hope everybody's partnership is how it operates with us. And we've just kept it like that. And we have been, we've had the privilege of being able to open up, 5 different restaurants and doing a TV show and cookbooks, and awesome consulting and, traveling around the world from it. So I think it's amazing. And it's still going on today. We're doing our second cookbook. It's a mocktail book. And yeah, it's brilliant. I think I found someone who wanted to push the same way I did, had great talent in his own right, and was ready. Yeah. And was out here, which was like, why are you also out here? But yeah, fate for sure. That was very interesting because I was not that I had a big fate thing, but I think, I felt like I could control what I wanted my future to be. It was very methodical for me, like do 2 years here, do 2 years there, then move here, then do this and line up that. It was very, so, it's comfort for me. Yeah. So, 13 years in, we still own a restaurant today. We sold a lot of them, bought a lot of them. Nothing to do with Corona. Lucky enough, we sold a lot of restaurants about 2 years before Corona hit. So we kind of cashed out a lot earlier than when it came, but we still own a restaurant, and it's an all vegan, actually tasting menu style with all Vin Naturel wines. And it's in the museum line. It's called Yerba, Yerba.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. And it's been open about 3 years. And then we just started a fried chicken pop-up.
No way. What's it called?
It's called Ladybird.
Ladybird. Why that name for fried chicken?
So I think it came from me wanting it to be feminine because my memory is my grandmother. Of obviously like Sunday dinners, her getting down and just creating that environment for us, and that nostalgia. So it needed to be feminine. I think we wanted it to make sure that it showed a bit of class. I didn't really, you can go pretty far with cultural appropriation. And it's something that we're dealing out here. I'll talk about it in a couple minutes, but I wanted to make sure that when people saw it, they didn't think that it was 2 Black dudes in the kitchen playing hip hop, making fried chicken. Right. I think that's something I struggle with, I'm going to say.
And that kind of segues into the next question I wanted to ask you. What was it like for the Dutch community? These 2 Black dudes, taking over the culinary arts.
It was rattling.
Was it radical?
I think it was just it's something that it just never happened. One, I don't know another Black American chef out here. I don't know another Black British chef out here in the country. Also a duo on top of it and being successful at what they do, making the right amount of noise and trying to touch it on every level, right? That was also a goal for us, that it was like, I just don't want to own a fancy place or a brunch spot or a wine bar. I want to touch every aspect of this game while we're out here, because this is the profession that I'm in. And I think both of us have the mentality, obviously Tony being from London, very competitive food city and hospitality city, and me being from New York, we felt like it was important to, and we have a saying, it's to compete with where we're from, not where we're at, right? So I'm not competing with the Netherlands with food. I'm making sure that when a New Yorker comes, when you come, that you're like, oh, this is home. Oh, I get this. And I'm not even talking about the fried chicken. I'm talking about the other restaurants before. We had, our first restaurant was called Fraiche. That's also probably something to talk about. And it was spelt like creme fraiche, right? It was spelt fresh in a French way. And that kind of embodied who we were. We were both from very populated cities. And I think just the actual slang word of fresh meant a lot to us. From just our age, it's something I still say all the time. but we're both classically French trained. So it felt like the right mix of wordplay. And it was a 35 to 40 seat restaurant, tasting menu, very private. It was myself, Tony, two other servers, and we did it all by ourselves. And we would serve you, pour wine, tasting. It was really personal. And that's where me and Tony really became tight, because this is the thing. Me and Tony didn't go into business together because we were friends. We weren't friends, actually, when we went into business. Not that obviously we were enemies, but we weren't going into business because we were friends with each other. And that's obviously now we are. It's 13 years later. He's a dear friend. But when we started this, we opened a restaurant 2.5, 3 years of me moving here at least. Tony had been here probably 4 years prior to me coming. By no means necessary did I say, oh, this is a cool dude, let me open a restaurant with him. It was like, nah, this guy can help me make this restaurant successful. And he felt the same way. And that's what happened. And because of our kind of due diligence and respect for the business that we were having, and that we both decided every day to show up in every shape, form, or fashion, it really built respect for each other, and therefore built a really solid friendship and partnership from it, where you don't want to let each other down, where you don't want to disrespect each other. There's no, I can literally say at all these years of us being business partners, we have never had any type of falling out.
That's amazing.
It's amazing,
Great,
but it's
yeah.
intentional, right? We respect each other's space on every way, the mental, the physical, the whatever they need, you respect it. And because it's about the business at the end of the day, right? We always made sure that it was like, no, this is about the business. We're never bringing in personal shit. There's never it's business. And that meant a lot for us. We both wanted to be successful entrepreneurs, and we knew what we were up against being out here. So yeah, we did that. Sorry for jumping all over the place. It's a big story to push in. No,
it's great.
But yeah,
great story.
Yeah, so and then we just kept on, and even still to this day, we're still doing projects and we're still consulting, and still working on books, and still doing what we have the privilege to do what makes us happy in entirety, and pace it the way we want, and partner up with the people that we want. And still do what we want. I think it's so important, if you can in your life, to reach that position in your life that you can pivot appropriately to as your life changes, right? And your interests change, and your life changes for that work-life balance. It's so important. It's so important for us as a people to find that balance. Sometimes.
Yeah, well, being a foreigner in a foreign land,
Sure.
I feel like sometimes that is what a lot of people struggle with, finding
Sure.
that balance, being able to just slide in and adapt to the culture, because I'm sure there are some I don't want to say negative, but some difficulties.
But there is.
You had
of course
to
there
adjust
is.
to.
There's no Black people out here. I'm in the Netherlands. Like, it's less of a percentage here than it is in the States, right? Like, it's low. It's very low, and especially if you get to a certain economical point, right? It really filters out. It becomes singular in a kind of a sense. So I think that there's also something to be said for being happy in your own space, your own skin. And for me, it's a bigger picture. As much as I would absolutely want to be around my peoples all day, without question, this life is about me. Like, like, I don't understand. Right at this point with babies, and I'm thinking already great grandchildren. How am I supposed to be pivoting myself right now for when I'm not even here? How can I generate and pass wealth? Like real important movements that I think our culture has lacked to do. And for me, my solution was to leave that environment so I could grow in a different way.
So Netherlands, it's safe to say for you and Tony, this is home.
Definitely for Tony. So Tony's story on what I can say about it is, so Tony's wife is Dutch, so it's a bit different. And Tony has 2 children. So 2 kids. And yeah, he ended up obviously staying here, and I think, it's an open conversation. This is his home until I think it's retirement, and then he'll, like all of us, find somewhere warm. And same thing with us. I don't know how many years left we have here, but the kids will finish majority of their school, and I think then we'll probably run away to somewhere warm, and try to finish that.
Will you
The
come
rest,
to Mexico, maybe?
something like that. Costa Rica, maybe. I like their political stance and their energy stance, and I like a lot of stuff about that country. Or maybe Portugal. You can get a really cool, and it's really good to know this. You invest about $500,000 in a property, you can get a golden visa. So you basically get a passport, EU citizenship for you and your family, which is an amazing way into a continent, that you can kind of invest $500,000 that you probably would invest in the States, and your entire family and yourself are now allowed to be citizens of Europe. If there's if you're looking to detach or unplug. Yeah. So I think Tony's story is a lot different than mine. It's definitely something that he should tell you, but for all intents and purposes, yeah, he's definitely also be finishing up and living here for sure for quite a while.
So that's very cool. I have 2 last questions for you. One is, any words of advice for someone who may be watching, who's thinking of they're thinking the same thing that we thought about all those years
Yeah, don't think that you can't do it. Like, seriously, don't think that you can't do it. If you can function in any major American city, you can, without question, function in any European city. Be very clear about that. Do not let the language frustrate you. Do not let the schooling system frustrate you. Do not think that any of those are out of understanding the system. These are humans. They wake up, they eat breakfast. After that, they eat lunch and then dinner and go to bed like everyone else. And I think the most valuable part is this. This has provided me with a different level of free thought. I don't know what it's like to live in America right now, but I know what it's like to live in America as a Black person in general. And there's absolutely, always has been, and they will continuously try to restrain our thought process and our growth. And they will do it by, as we see, any means necessary. And I feel like that is something that just does not, or is not, the predominant way that they deal with their racist behavior over here. Let's be clear, it's Europe, it's racist. Let's not sugarcoat something. What it isn't is it's not violent racism, it's economical racism. And I am always game to count my ones. If that's just gonna, yeah. So I think that that's important, is to understand that once you take the violence out of a situation, how can it can change the scenario, the result of when trying to get something done. We have a project, and that's what I was going to talk about. Is we're starting to speak to the Dutch government and also the industry about racism in food over here. At least in the Netherlands.
In what way? How is
just how it exists, how it's just, I mean, what we consider to be haute cuisine, right? So I come from a certain world. So I understand that there's a certain mentality that French is fancy food and African is ethnic food, right? So that statement alone is racist. You tell me what department out of haute cuisine, fancy food, exclusive, private, ethnic food fits in. None of those. It's ethnic food. It is immediately downgraded and becomes a second-class cuisine.
That's an interesting point. Never thought of that.
Right? We use it and we embrace it, but it's like the word nigga, actually. It's a, why is it ethnic food? To whom? French is ethnic food to Africans. What are we talking about? Right? It's just something that's saying that it is not local. But when you are dealing with European countries who obviously have colonialized the majority of this planet, what food is not part of your country? What spice have you not taken, used, and made normal on your dining room dresser? You know what I'm saying? Like, don't do that. So I think there's a real discussion to be said that why is every famous Michelin chef some white guy with blue eyes and brown or blonde hair? Why is the first black woman just now, this year, first received a Michelin star? You know how ridiculous that shit is? For a black woman who pretty much single-handedly has fed this planet at some point or another? Are you kidding me? So there's a discussion to be had. There's a real point to be proven, and there's some lessons to be learned. And I happen to live in the Netherlands, so that's who I'm going to talk to. And I want to train some youth. I want to get young black kids in the restaurants that they would probably never, ever be able to even be let, step foot in, either from intimidation or just not knowing. And make it a safe space. Get these young brown kids in the restaurants and start showing them that there's a different profession. The more professions we can show our people, the better we are all, right? From being the president to an accountant to whatever, there's alternatives, there's options. You are allowed to do whatever you see fit, but it is very hard to imagine that if you don't have an example in front of you. It's just hard. It's the way we work. So out here, it's very important. I've dealt with a lot of restaurants. I've dealt with a lot of cooks, a lot of organizations. And I feel like it's time for us to say something and do it in our way as well.
I love
so
that.
That's kind of, that's
that.
one of the next bigger projects.
Good for you. How can we connect with you and Anthony if you have a cookbook and you've got one on the way?
Sure. So our website is Fraiche Hospitality, and spelled FRAICHE hospitality.com. And you can obviously connect us to there. IG and all the other social media outlets, we're all on. I'm under my name, Noah G. Tucker. Everything is very open and very transparent about what we do. We have a couple other fun projects that are nice to find out about that are part of our TV show, cooking show stuff that we do. We're very out there. We're very transparent in being able to reach us for anything.
Is your cookbook on Amazon, or is how?
Our cookbook is on almost every single platform at this point for sale. It is called High Cuisine. It is actually about cooking with alternative drugs and medicine, and kind of knocking down taboos about what we should be using and what we can use when it comes to kind of elevating the cuisine. I'm in a country that a lot of stuff is legal that isn't legal around the world, including psychedelics, including cannabis, or if they're not necessarily legal, they're allowed to, coexist, and they're decriminalized. So we decided to take our pedigree of, foie gras and caviar and langoustines and truffles and mix it with psychedelics and cannabis and a bunch of other very old ancient drugs, and make a tasting menu and travel around Europe and go to Michelin restaurants and go to the farms and create a really interesting experience. And we wrote a book about it. Yeah. And it should be out in the States soon.
Uh-huh.
We made a TV show about it last year, and we did it in Benelux. It played for a year, and now we are out shopping it for the States. So it actually should be available not very soon, but soon for sure in the US market.
Okay, we're going to have to keep an eye out for that. Noah, you are amazing. I wish you lots of blessings for
Appreciate it.
Your projects. You have been a little light of inspiration for me, and hopefully for those that watch. Thanks to Anthony, who is absent but in our hearts.
Absolutely. Everything. So just to be clear, everything that I've just spoke about, Anthony is 50% owner, partner, creator, of it all. Everything is down the line. We bounce every idea is half his.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
The wonderful duo. And we'll be looking out for your future projects. And I thank you
Thank
so
you.
much again for these moments.
Absolutely. I'm glad we could have this talk.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a really good night.